Hello and welcome to the Worn and Wound podcast. My name is Blake Benner. I am in studio today with producer Josh. Hey Josh, how are you?
Doing good. Good to be back.
Yeah, man. We missed you last week. You need to get. You need to get him a Walter. You need to get him one of these, a mic.
Oh yeah.
So he can talk. I always feel rude. I end up talking to him, and then I look over, and he's like.
I told him he could, but I think he. Well, not to say that I know a lot about watches, but I mean, I just know a little bit of something. He's like, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we have Zach Kazan in the computer. Zach, how are you? Welcome.
I'm doing well. How are you?
Excellent. It's Friday, and it's been a busier than usual week. I feel like with releases. There's a lot that happened this week. A lot of new stuff that came out. Omega dropped all of their releases. We'll talk about some of those. We had a Ming, a Serica. We had some cool stuff come out. Most importantly, a Maurice Lacroix, which we'll also talk about a little bit. Most importantly, yes.
A separate pod maybe for that one.
Which, yeah. Well, they talk about the YouTube algorithm hiding certain posts or something. That one must have just been hidden from most. I'm just going to assume that's why. It doesn't.
Don't know why anyone would want to hide that post. It's wonderful.
Before we get to that, Zach, what are you wearing on your wrist?
I'm wearing my Grand Seiko SBGH 271, the summer dial. Actually, this is a watch that I wore constantly for a year or so, and I got a new Grand Seiko at the end of last year, and it's been maybe a month or so since I've worn this. So
nice. Okay.
Changing the date and was like, did I really not wear it since then? But yeah,
that's nice. I notice that sometimes on the watches that I pick up that have a date, and if it's like the totally opposite end of the month that I'm on. I'm like, oh boy, I guess it has been a while. Josh, what do you got on over there?
I have the still wearing the Worn and Wound 10th anniversary Seiko 5, which is it's just hard for me not to grab this every single day. Yeah. It really is.
Your whole outfit matches it too.
Yeah, I know. I feel like I'm planning my outfits around my watch now. We've done that a time or two. That's when you know you're past a certain point. Yeah. Red pilled pretty hard.
Like I can't wear that shirt. I was gonna wear this watch. Like I have to rethink all of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I am wearing a Zen EZM 13.1. I don't think I've worn this watch on the podcast before. This is their newest release of the year. This is an update of the EZM 13. Naturally. They removed the Arabic numerals from the inner part of the dial, and I think it looks lovely as a result. It is a tank of a watch, though. It's not for the faint of heart, but it's its own. It kind of owns it, and it's makes no apologies for it.
What are the measurements?
Yeah, I was going to ask.
Well, it's only 40 millimeters, but it's probably 14 and a half thick.
That's chunky.
So it. Yeah, and it's not like it's trying to hide that or anything like that. It's just kind of is what it is. It's a hardcore watch, though, right? It's got the it's a diver's chronograph. So it's got the left-hand crown and pushers. It's got the dehumidifying thing. It's got and it's got a single 60-minute counter at the bottom, which I really like. It's a really unusual layout for a chronograph, and I would like to see more of these. So yeah, that's what I'm wearing today. It's a very cool watch, and we will have a lot more to say about this and some other Zen watches on the site soon. We're working on some cool stuff there. So if Zen is your thing, keep an eye out. Before we get too deep into anything, I wanted to give a shout out to an upcoming auction that is taking place later this month. I believe the 25th through the 28th. We put something up about it over the weekend in the Watches Stories gear. This is an auction that is going to be run through Loop This with Red Bar and Revolution. and they are gathering up a bunch of watches to auction, and 100% of the proceeds are going to the World Central Kitchen, I believe is the name of it. This is Chef Jose Andreas' outfit, and they have been on the ground in and around Ukraine since day one, helping get food to people in need.
He does great stuff.
Yeah,
he does a lot of great stuff.
He's amazing. So this is he's been at this for since Haiti, the 2010 earthquake, and they've just been doing awesome stuff ever since. So a lot of watches, a lot of people are going to be contributing watches to this auction. I don't have the full list quite yet, but check out the site to see more, or look at Red Bar's Instagram, Revolution's Instagram. I'm sure it'll all be up there. So anyways, it's coming up the end of this month. Check it out. Go over to Loop This, make an account, and get ready to put some bids up for a great cause. We will have a Seiko 5 Worn and Wound limited edition in it, and it is going to be number 1,000 of 1,000.
Oh, that's cool.
The very
Last one.
That's
the
awesome.
very last one. And they are, of course, sold out. So if you missed your chance, here's your next chance to get one and do some good in the process. So be sure to check that out. Zach, Maurice Lacroix released a watch this week that I'll tell you what, I thought, oh, this is gonna be a thing. People are gonna be talking about this. I'm not talking about it, but it's different. It's out there. Eloise? How do you say it?
I think it's the Elaros Sunshine.
Elaros
It's,
Sunshine.
the name of the watch.
Okay. Tell us about this watch.
This is a big gold watch. It has it's gold plated. It's not, there isn't any actual gold on this watch. Rest assured, retail price is $850, so I feel pretty safe and assuming that it's some sort of plating application here. But obviously we'll post a link in the show notes to it, but you just kind of have to look at pictures of it to kind of see how kind of crazy this thing is. It's got a gold tone dial with kind of like a pyramid motif, like a three-dimensional pyramid motif running through it. Gold tone case, and the strap has the same motif as the dial, so it has this texture to it. It's just crazy. I mean, this is not a watch that's my style at all. I would never wear something like this, even in the most relaxed kind of vacation setting. But I think it's it's definitely a fun out there design. I enjoyed writing about it. I saw it, and I think you did too, and we were just what is this thing? I kind of want to know more about it.
Yeah, completely. I opened the email and kind of made an audible whoa when I saw this, and then immediately went over to Slack to do you guys see this thing? Isn't this crazy? Josh, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm staring at it right now, and
that's all you can do is stare at it.
Right? I'm just trying to I'm trying to find the best product shots of it. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of evident in some of the product shots, with a handbag. It reminds me of a Fendi bag, or where it's an all over print of something. I mean, I think I'm with you guys. It's not really for me, despite the fact that I think out of the three of us, I probably like gold a little bit more than the two of you guys. But this is what's it called? But I think this is definitely for somebody though. And I like to see and I like to see different stuff too. So I think what's it called? If anything, I think they have a woman in the product shots or whatever. I could see a lot of women gravitating to this watch too.
Yeah, it's got a mall watch vibe, right?
They call out in their press materials that it's they describe it as unisex, I believe is the word they use. Which is all watches I think are unisex, anyone can wear any watch. This watch is 42 millimeters though, so it's not it's not a traditionally kind of ladies sized watch. But I think maybe the style might be more towards traditional ladies watches. I don't know. It's very strange. Like I said, I enjoyed kind of just thinking of how to frame it and how to write about it was kind of a fun challenge for me. So
it's a fun article to read. You can tell that you enjoyed writing it. I like that they made this watch. It's a little ridiculous and it's a little out there. Do you remember all I was thinking of the Pontos, that dive watch with the internal bezel that they made I don't know, years back or something like this.
I'm familiar with that.
This is the other end of the spectrum than that. maybe they're just finding their voice now again, and it's going to be in gold, pure gold, all gold watches. So I don't know. No, it's interesting. Check it out. It's on the site. If you dare. It's not for the faint of heart, I don't think. All right, so getting into some of the other releases, Ming had the first release of the year, the 2201. This is a GMT watch that uses I believe a Serica base movement that they've made a couple of maybe visual modifications to, because it is visible through the back. But it's kind of done in the typical Ming styling. It's, I think, 38.5 millimeters, quite thin, and it is mainly kind of playing with some interesting textures, colors, shapes on the dial that kind of, what would you say, subvert expectations when it comes to watches. There's no, there's no Arabic hour numerals. I think the integration of the 24-hour scale is done in silver, and it is etched into a sapphire that's underneath the sapphire, the top sapphire. And then underneath that is the actual textured components of the dial. So if you catch it in the right light, it kind of looks like a flat glared surface underneath there. But, if you look straight at it, you see the colors and so it's a real kind of interesting interplay of textures and light and colors and things like that. And everything is kind of very subtle. And then it's got the same hands that we saw in the 1709 that are kind of like teardrops hollowed out. This is a handsome watch, I think. I like the dials. I like the two components that the kind of outer ring is a different color from the center section. My one gripe with this watch, though, is the 24-hour hand.
Yeah.
Which feels kind of like an afterthought. It kind of like, it doesn't seem very legible or practical. Like, it seems like, this was such an opportunity. I wanted to see that done in like some crazy Ming way. And it just kind of feels like...
it's almost invisible. It's like, it's not, I think an afterthought is kind of like the right way to describe it. It's just not...
And I'm sure it's not. I mean, with all due respect to them, it's just I wanted more from that part of it, and I think that would have like really pushed this over the top. And as far as Ming watches go, this one was, I guess, relatively accessible. It's about $3,500, and so one of them is Kyoto, and the other is the Gilt. I guess by the time this airs, the second one, the Gilt, will have gone for sale. I believe that morning of the 16th, something like that. The Kyoto is, I'm assuming, all gone already. But yeah, I think there's some interesting things happening here, and I would like to see them kind of worked on and refined in future iterations of this watch. Zach, what do you think of this thing?
I mean, I kind of can only echo your thoughts. It's a nice looking watch. It's definitely like all Mings, you kind of look at it and can immediately identify that it's a Ming. Like, they have a very specific design language, and they're pretty good at kind of like iterating on that in subtle ways and advancing it in subtle ways with each new release. I like the multiple layers of sapphire with the lume kind of embedded in the sapphire. I think that's a really cool, really cool design feature. The GMT hand is kind of like a wasted opportunity. It's the movement is I believe not a local jumping hour GMT movement. Correct. It's the GMT hand is independently adjustable. So it's not like a, this is not, what I'd describe as like a perfect travel watch. I imagine most people will just kind of not even really use the GMT functionality. So maybe, maybe it's okay that the GMT hand is not it doesn't draw attention to itself in that way.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
I don't know. I kind of have mixed feelings about it. It's people who order it now won't be getting it until the very end of the year, which is kind of a bummer. I guess they got to make them, So, congrats if you were able to score one. It's always interesting to see what they come up with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the case itself is lovely, and I like some of the things they're doing. So yeah, I'm excited to see what else they have in store for this year. And the other kind of small brand release that happened this week, even smaller still, Serica released a new 4512. That was just this morning, actually. So this is a new iteration of an existing watch within their collection, but it's an enamel dial, tuxedo dial, the California TXD. Is what it's called, and this is a watch that is $600, something like that, and using enamel. It's got a soprod movement in it, I believe. It's pretty sharp, and it's got that bong clip bracelet, and it's got a style all its own. I think. Were you ever a fan of the first Serica releases, the 4512, the 5303?
Yeah. No, all the Sericas are great. I'm a big fan of their design language, and this one's really beautiful. I was not expecting an enamel dial from Serica. That'd be probably the last thing I would have expected. But they really nailed it. It's very nice.
Yeah, I've had a lot of good positive feedback on this one as well. So congrats to Jerome and the guys over there on that one. I think they're another brand. We've said it before. A lot of eyes are on them this year to kind of see what they do. They've, I think, made a splash with some of the early designs, especially that 5303 is really fantastic, I think. But this is a watch that, I don't know, it kind of walks that line. They kind of call it out as being, it's not just field watch. Like you can dress it up in these kind of funky ways, and that's kind of what makes it something else. This is that kind of gray area that we've talked about a time or two before within watches that are not kind of tying themselves down to a single genre and how they refer to themselves, and maybe all it takes is just how the brand talks about it, and like some of the marketing material shows it on the wrist of a guy like in a suit at a poker table or whatever. Like maybe
it's a poker watch.
Maybe that's all it takes. Like if they only showed exclusive, hardcore army guys out in the field or whatever, like, okay, it's a field watch, but it's not like the design has changed all that much. And, well, you know what? It works just fine in this kind of, I think the bracelet is what kind of does it the most. So that bond clip bracelet is what kind of lends to that.
I love
like stylish element to it too, What do you think of this thing?
I think it's beautiful. Like I think this is really cool. I was a big fan of the earlier releases that they had. Those early releases, those are like their first two. Those are like their first releases, right? The one.
So they've had the 4512 was their first release, which was based on the WMB edition watches from 2019. I think that was like a real small batch, like proof of concept, something like that. And then the 4512 was the proper production version of that watch.
Yeah.
And then this is kind of building on that. So this is a different movement though. I think they were using an STP movement in their 4512, and they've gone over to the Soprod movement. So now that's three different movements that they've used in these last three releases. I wonder if they're still kind of finding their footing there in what works best for them. I know they had some crown stem issues on the 5303. Nothing major or anything like that, but especially for a brand that's just a couple years old, and pretty much their freshman, sophomore releases. I think there's going to just be some growing pains to this stuff. That's totally normal. So they handled it well, though. I think they took care of anyone that had an issue with the stem. And it's I think I pointed it out on the podcast, like when I wore it in here one of these days. I said, it's you really got to pull the crown out to get it to engage. It's not broken or anything. It works. It's just
one of those things you deal with.
It's just a little like quirk. Let's call it a quirk.
Yeah.
It's a feature, not a bug, kind of a thing. No, definitely not that. So when people complained, they did the right thing, and I think they took care of them. So, yeah, happy to see them doing new things, especially dabbling in enamel, doing surprising things.
Yeah, enamel.
Like
I like the fact that it's a brand new looking dial too, like with the half. It's got like, was it half Roman numerals, half?
That's the California dial configuration.
Yeah.
So the Roman and the Arabic.
Yeah, like that's really cool.
Yeah, it is. It's I like that. I feel like those are. I feel like we saw quite a few of those last year. I think they're kind of hit or miss when they're done, but when they hit, they really hit.
Yeah, I think this one works.
Yeah, Fair had a nice one last year too, I think, as well. So.
Nomos, that's a good one. I like the Nomos California dials on the club.
Oh yeah, totally. It's completely cohesive. It doesn't look like a mismatch. Like you almost don't even notice. You're like, oh yeah, that is. Yeah. It's just one of those things. So on top of that, we had the big releases from Omega happen this week. They had an event in Miami, I believe, from what I saw. We weren't there. I hope everybody that was had a good time. The watches are, well, I don't know. I don't know what I was expecting. Probably not these. Probably not the watches that we got. But I guess that's what I say every year, right? You see all the releases, you're like, I don't know what I was expecting. But
It
Omega,
wouldn't be any fun if it was always what you expected. Like,
yeah,
that's not great.
Yeah,
like
you're right.
it's nice when you get surprised.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is a nice surprise for me.
So you like these?
Yeah.
You're on board with what Omega did?
I'm on board, considering like I'm not, like, I think we all know I'm not the biggest Rolex fan, but I don't have that same sort of, like, I don't really have any animosity towards Rolexes really, but I do like, especially the Speedmaster. I was like, I am a little bit of a fan of that, but not really a watch that I was really look at as being like, oh, I really want that. But this version of it, these versions of it.
So they did this, the new version of the Speedmaster 57, and it's in the 40 millimeter case. It's a little bit thinner. I think I feel like we made this when those chronoscopes came out. I feel like one of us said something in here. Boy, it would be nice to see that movement put into some of those other Speedmaster variations. I think we commented on the Dark Side of the Moons, potentially, like watches like that, getting them. So here we are. It's the 57s. I'll be perfectly honest. I'm not a huge fan of the 57 broadsword dual register design Speedmaster, but these look great. I think they nailed the proportion of it. They've got some colors in there. So assuming this is what you're talking about, are you talking about the precious metal Speedmasters?
Maybe they were precious metal, but it was like whatever ones that were like the rose gold color.
Oh yeah. Those are my hands down. Like those are fabulous. the gold, the precious metal Speedmasters series are beautiful. So they have what do they call it? Is it Sedna? Or is this
Moonshine?
These not Moonshine? That's right.
Moonshine is their yellow gold equivalent. Sedna is like a red gold, and of course Canopus gold, which we saw earlier this year in the Speedmaster, is their white gold. So
yeah. And they're all lovely.
Make sure you get the branded alloys correct.
I know. Forgive me there for not knowing that. So so one of them came out with like a deep green dial, and then another one with a gold dial and black subdials and black, and most importantly, the black bezel insert.
It was beautiful.
These hit on just the right note. And I mean, it's easy to, like, these, especially taken with the colorful selection of what are those, Aquaterras. I mean, it's easy to draw some parallels to what Rolex is maybe doing. They've got the John Mayer full gold with the green dial Daytona. Rolex does not make a full precious metal yellow gold Daytona with a black bezel. That only comes on the Oyster Flex strap. But this, I mean, it's its own thing. Obviously, it's not trying to look like it looks like a Speedmaster, which is very much a good thing. It's a gorgeous watch, and it really works in these colorways, I think. And looking at the prices for precious metal Daytonas, these seem pretty reasonably priced. So. Yeah, I love those two the most of anything that they released this year. But the Speedmaster 57s, I think, were pretty popular. I saw mostly really positive reactions to these things. And Zach, I think this is a watch that you and Zach were quite fond of as well.
Yeah, I like the size of it. I like that it's so traditionally the Speedmaster 57 has an automatic movement, which just always seemed really kind of incongruous to me. Like I just, there's nothing wrong with an automatic Speedmaster in principle, but because it's like tied so closely to that original Speedmaster design, I just feel like a hand wound movement makes more sense. So these have that new hand wound movement, and two register design, like you said, and some pretty interesting colorways. There's the black sandwich style with the kind of like radium toned loom underneath, solid green, and then a blue and a burgundy, which I think is my personal favorite. I really like the way that one looks. I'm curious to see that one in the metal at some point. And they're smaller. They're like 40 millimeters. They're just under 13 millimeters thick, which is a good size, and thinner than the regular Moonwatch. So I'd be curious to see how these wear. Straight lugs, just like the original Speedmaster. They look really nice, I think.
Yeah, I feel like these will look great on wrist. I feel like in pictures it looks like a big, like, oh, it's probably like 43 millimeters, something like that. But it's, I'm sure on the wrist it'll look great, and in the flesh. So hopefully we're able to get our hands on some of those soon to do something with, and hopefully one of those precious metal ones we can get in here. I'll bring it in here to record with. So, yeah, those are cool, and it's an interesting. You can see the movement through the back, and I feel like it's like the entire 3/4 plate is there, which is like an opening for to see the balance and the escapement working away.
It's beautiful. It's a very different kind of look for an Omega. Like it's not what you expect. Like when you flip over an Omega to see a movement, kind of decorated like that. But it's quite striking. It's beautiful.
And the Geneva stripes kind of like emanate out from the opening for the balance. So it's definitely a unique look for and I would say like a lot of Omega movements have kind of their own style and unique finishing on them. That's like it's not trying to look like kind of old world classic movement finishing. It's just kind of like pushing ahead. It looks like kind of modern, quote unquote, finishing for the movements. They've got some different colored pieces in there, and I think that they don't get enough credit for that kind of thing. So props to Omega there. And then of course the Aquaterras, which came in a slew of different colors. They feel a little more like kind of pastel to me, at least. Kind of like, I don't know if they're sunburst or something like that. They seem to have kind of a shimmering quality to them. I'm also not a huge Aquaterra fan, but these also seem pretty popular with folks. I think these are 40 millimeters, maybe under, maybe something like that. But they're sharp watches, and it's always nice to see new colors being thrown around here. But the big release. Big release was a watch in the Planet Ocean range. So I think a lot of us were expecting maybe a totally new generation of Planet Oceans, and they had started teasing something like that on their Instagram a while back. What we got was definitely not what I was expecting. It's basically a production version of that prototype that we saw a couple of years back. That titanium. I mean, what you
Ultra
call it.
Deep.
Yeah, the Ultra Deep. So they were a part of an expedition that went to the bottom of the Mariana Trench, and as you do when you're doing this, you strap one of these bad boys to the outside of the rig and send her on down. So just like Rolex made their prototype version of the Deep Sea Sea Dweller before the James Cameron Deep Sea came out. They put it to the outside, but it's like the extreme version of it. So it's like absolutely massive. What is it, like 38,000 feet or something down there? So it has to be. So they brought out a production version of this watch, the Planet Ocean Ultra Deep, with the steel titanium case. This one's only rated to 20,000 feet. So still pretty casual level of depth there. It's
for amateur divers only.
For amateurs only. So the prototype one, I think was like 28 millimeters thick or something like that. So the production version is I think a little over 18 and a half millimeters thick. Still, massively thick, 45 millimeters. But it's made for, I guess, people to wear. There's a titanium. So it's titanium, so maybe it's lightweight, and it's got I really love the integrated lug design of this. This is a fixed lug design, and it's like a manta lug. So they kind of sweep down, and there's an opening between them.
Oh yeah, that is kind of cool.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah, I'm looking
I
at
like
it.
that.
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
And it's got it's a great looking dial and bezel. I think if you're into like hardcore dive watches. And I think the PO always had a pretty handsome design language about it, and this is kind of like the buffed up version of that, I guess. So it's a cool watch. I think I don't know who's going to be wearing it, because they also released it alongside some colorful steel versions of it as well, like on bracelets with like fume dials and glossy ceramic bezels. Like, they're saying, oh yeah, it's okay. This could be your everyday watch. Just go wear it around. And I don't know how I feel about that. I would love to see somebody just wandering around New York wearing one of these things, like in a suit and tie or something. The other one, the titanium one, I kind of think more along the lines of like the Ploprof or something, right? Like it's kind of purpose built, it's funky, it's unique, so it kind of gets a pass on the ergonomic side of things. But these other ones are just kind of, no, go ahead, wear it, wear it around. Would you wear one of these, Zach?
I probably like not every day, but I mean definitely not every day. Like it's too big, for an everyday watch. But I do kind of see the appeal of these. Like I think that like there's something kind of fun about having like a really super over engineered watch, and that's what these are. But that's like what any Planet Ocean is too. These are just like taken to another level. I think that they're attractive watches. Like I'd be curious to see like how they feel on the wrist and like what they look like in person. They're too big for me to consider like like actually owning one. But I think they're nice looking, and I think this is kind of like you mentioned, like you were expecting like a Planet Ocean upgrade. I think that's kind of what this is. Like it's I guess it's technically part of the Planet Ocean family, and it's sort of like the equivalent of like if the Planet Ocean is like the Rolex Sea Dweller, this is like the Rolex version of the the Omega version of the Deep Sea. It's like that, like the ultra high end, just kind of like it's just an example of their technical prowess more than like a functional tool watch that you actually need. It's just sort of like almost like a conversation piece more than anything. But I do think it's an attractive looking dive watch.
Yeah, so do I. It's really cool, and I think when I said that I was expecting a new PO, I was thinking maybe a watch that if you were considering like a Black Bay, that you would stop and go, oh, well, Omega has this new, like Black Bay shoppers aren't going to be like, I'll get the new Ultra Deep or something like that, right? Like, this is different territory. This is like, if you want that, like, I appreciate the engineering that goes into this, and I don't know. I just have a hard time seeing people wearing these, but I like that it's there, and I guess for me, these are about $12,000 in that realm, $11,000. So definitely not cheap. And if I was going to go with something that was like out there and strange and like borderline unwearable but really cool, like I would go with a Ploprof before that, just because that's like kind of even more like out there and weird, and it's its own thing.
I definitely agree. I love the Ploprof. I think the Ploprof is the Ploprof is a great watch, and I think that these have nothing on the Ploprof in terms of like the cool factor.
Maybe this is like a next generation of that. I don't know, but but like the Ploprof is not cheap either. That's like $10,000 or something like that. So I bet a lot of people that have a Ploprof will end up buying one of these, just because it's kind of like in that same vein of like ridiculousness. But the Ploprof has that like 70s funk that's like, what is it?
That's what I was getting ready to say. It's like if you're looking for something to, like you said, like something that's a little bit extreme, but what's it called? It's like looks wise, from like at a glance, no one's gonna know that thing is, But I'm glad it exists though. Like,
it's cool. And again, like I love the case design language of this thing. Even the dial, it's a great looking watch. It's just it's out there.
It does, like the other thing. Going back to the Ploprof, like the Ploprof, like there's nothing else that looks like the Ploprof. Like it's a completely unique style of watch. But this looks like every other Seamaster to a certain extent. Like it has like, if you just look at it from like the top down, it has the same like twisted lugs and, kind of like profile as, the Seamaster 300 and the Planet Oceans. Like it's, you can tell it's very much in that same design lane, which is just like massively thicker and built differently. So that's that's the other thing I think points in the Ploprof's favor, just because it's like it's so unique and cool, and like this is just like an extension of the Seamaster family, I guess, for people who just want to stunt a little bit with their massive depth rating.
So if we are comparing these to Bob Dylan albums, the Planet Ocean would be
the Planet Ocean, I guess.
And the
I don't know.
and then the
You're
flow
catching me off
prof would,
guard.
and then the flow prof would be the strange.
Yeah, the Plo Prof would be like his weird like Christian period or something.
Yeah.
It's like the whatever the strangest period of his career is. Yeah.
And the flow prof is kind of the safer classic. It's something that's you feel like okay, this adheres to what I'm expecting to see in a dive watch.
But I kind of think,
like the '60s masterpieces is the Seamaster equivalent. Yeah.
But I think the fact that it kind of looks like every other Seamaster, though, it kind of actually helps it in a way, because it's like you could wear, like, it does strike me as a watch that you could wear every day and it not be, and it's kind of like between you and it's kind of like I don't want to call it like an inside joke or whatever, but it's just like, you're walking around and it's a piece you could wear every day, but nobody knows how badass this thing is.
Yeah. It's I mean, it's, and if you look over at Rolex, like the deep sea Sea Dweller looks an awful lot like a Submariner, and they, 99 out of 100 people probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference if you just like top down looked at them. And there's a Submariner, there's a Sea Dweller, and then there's a deep sea. And then they do that ultra deep prototype thing, but it's all kind of like the same way. It's the same like kind of design language. And like the Submariner you can wear every day, easy. It's relatively svelte. It's all that kind of stuff. But if you really appreciate like the stories, the engineering that goes into these things, which is really cool if you get into that kind of stuff. Like it's like the collector's one to have, right? But like if you got an old school Sea Dweller on, like. That's one of those like, oh, okay, like, I'm not just like every other dude with a Submariner on, I'm a level deeper than that. Okay, even
it says something about
it says something. Yes, I was at a pub once and a guy had on an old Sea Dweller, and I commented, not like awkwardly, like we were like right next to each other grabbing a beer at the same time, and I said, oh, nice Sea Dweller, and I could see him like get ready to correct me, and he said, oh. Yes, it is a Sea Dweller. He said, everybody thinks it's a Submariner, and then I was like, oh well, I'm a fan of these things, and so, we ended up talking for a while, and but I love seeing them out in the wild. It's such a, I don't know, it's the thinking man's sub, right? Maybe I don't know.
I owned one, so I'll take that.
You'll take that. There you go. Yeah, and you're like the thinking man's version of me. So,
I don't think either of us really think all that much.
Yeah. No, I brought up the Dylan songs and albums so we could touch on the article that went up that you wrote in a counterpoint to an article that I wrote. However, I think there's a lot of overlap in kind of how we think about these things, and there's a similarities there. So, you wrote a counterpoint about not like, hey, the watches I'm into need to have something a little extra, and you go into this whole thing about comparing, like, yes, of course, is the classics, the Dylan classics, and you listen to those 100 times, and it is what it is, and they never get old, they're always good, but you want the new interesting stuff to kind of pull you in a little bit more. And then it's the same with these watches, right? Where you kind of end up like, okay, well, now I'm curious. Like I want to have those new experiences over again. Like the first time you listen to Stairway to Heaven or something like that, like, oh, it's a transcendental experience. But the 100th times, like, okay, yeah, I got it. But you want to search for those.
Seek out the deeper cuts at some point.
Yeah, so you can have the more of those experiences, right? So Zach, I'll let you kind of give your case here.
Yeah. So you had written, your defense of the basic watch, a few weeks ago. And basic as in, not like basic as in simple, but basic as in like. The way in which we use it in a slang term. Yes.
I should have made that clear in my article, by the way, because I think people were thinking that I was like just literally basic. But no. You put something in there about friends marathons and mirror selfies and stuff like that.
Apologies to the cast of Friends. I didn't.
You know what it means, right?
Exactly.
Basic.
Yeah. There's another word that usually comes after that too.
Yes. Yeah. It's like, I'm not against like basic stuff. And like, I've owned, what you might call like basic watches. And, I'm not against that at all. And people ultimately should buy what they like and whatnot. But like, when I was reading your article, when it was kind of like still in draft form, I was thinking like, I kind of like am on the opposite side of this to a certain extent. Cause I actively seek out like weirder stuff, and like I'm really drawn to kind of like the unusual stuff. And so I wanted to write an article that was kind of like a counter to that, just about how like being in the hobby, like pretty deep, and working in the industry, seeing so many watches that kind of are so similar. They just seem like carbon copies of each other, coming off an assembly line, like one after another. I've really kind of developed an interest in searching for those oddballs, and kind of like really embracing that. And I found that very rewarding. So that's sort of that was what spurred me to write to write the article. And I do make some comparisons to kind of enjoying like the less heralded parts of Bob Dylan's design. Bob Dylan's one of my favorite artists, and I've enjoyed Bob Dylan's music for most of my life. I grew up listening to Dylan music, thanks to my father. And I remember reading criticism of these Dylan albums when I was younger that I had never heard of, that just seemed so weird to me, and then experiencing them and thinking, oh, there's actually something kind of like kind of unique and interesting about these, even though they're like not classics or reviled in some cases. And so I've always had that attitude when it comes to like to music and movies, seeking out like the weirder stuff, the less heralded stuff, and finding things to appreciate about them. And I think that's how I've kind of come to experience watches to a large extent as well.
Yeah. No, it was a great article, and I completely agree with the points that you made. If you haven't read it, be sure to go read it. And if you want, you can go read my my In Defense of the Basic Watch. And I think I largely kind of come down in the same territory that you do, in what I actually spend my time looking at and reading about and stuff. I don't sit on the Rolex forums reading about Submariners all day. I assure you. But my point was like, for mine, when I'm like a grab and go kind of situation, like that's usually the kind of watch I reach for. And and I have a few watches that I would say are probably the king of like basic bro watches. But it's fine. I've been into that stuff before they were that way. So like, I don't really care what people associate with them about me or whatever. Yeah. Like, I'm comfortable enough in who I am that I don't really let that affect me. But I have some very strange watches, just like you, Zach. You probably kind of lean a little bit further into some of these areas, which I really appreciate. And I love learning about this stuff from other people that are equally enthusiastic. And it's that kind of passion, enthusiasm that, when you're around it, it kind of pulls you into, it's like a gravity to it that pulls you in. And then sometimes it just takes like a different perspective to kind of, oh yeah, like I see the beauty there. Like, and I didn't before. Maybe it just takes somebody else talking about a Dylan album that you never really gave a second chance, or something unexpected. Like this new Batman movie that came out uses this Nirvana song, Something in the Way, like pretty extensively, I would say, in a lot of it. And that's a song that I've always enjoyed. But it's not one that I ever really kind of gave much of a second thought to. It's just kind of, if you're listening to Unplugged album or something, it's on there. And it's nice and fine, but it's not the one that you like, scroll through your album to find that song and put on that song.
It's funny. That's actually my favorite song, by the way.
That's your favorite? Oh, jeez. Yeah. Look at you. So maybe
it's a pretty great. I think it's a pretty well-regarded Nirvana song.
Yeah.
But I didn't, it's not like.
Yeah, no, it's not like a, well, it's definitely a downer.
Yeah.
and it's definitely it's a dark song. It's not something that's like really radio friendly or anything like that. But yeah.
But this now, it's like, it's this brilliant Nirvana song and this kind of stuff. Like, oh, okay. It was like a totally different perspective, and not perspective, I guess, execution of the song that I think paired up really well with the movie. Maybe a little over, I don't know, maybe a little overly. I feel like I noticed it a lot.
We're talking about the Batman now. Like, do we want to have that discussion about?
I haven't seen it yet, but like I remember in the with the Joker movie or whatever, they had that they had like that song. I forget the name of the artist, but the song was called like it's this like that Sinatra song that they play throughout the entire thing. And
I haven't seen the Joker yet.
Yeah.
So there you go. We're Zach, I think you're the only one that's probably
I've seen the Joker, but I'm having trouble thinking of the song. I saw the Joker once in theaters when it came out.
It's That's Life song, but I think it's a Sinatra song if I'm not mistaken. Okay. But like they play it like a million times throughout the entire movie, and it fits. But
Yeah.
You thought for this it was a little bit too.
Well, yeah. I mean,
overkill.
this is a little like edgy 14-year-oldness in the Batman. I very much enjoyed the movie, by the way. Don't at me with you.
People say it's good.
It's good. I enjoyed it too.
Good.
It's a good movie. Yeah.
Yeah, but anyways, that was kind of an unusual song choice that kind of brought it to another level that made you go, oh, okay, yeah, maybe it's worth looking into some of the darker corners of these albums. But apparently, I'm the only one, and it is a popular song, so I'll take my foot out of my mouth.
So like, it's like we're kind of old, but like a lot of people seeing this movie are gonna Nirvana was 30 years ago, so like they might not be as up to speed. Like any Nirvana track could be that like gateway into like a whole world of like weird 90s alternative rock.
I hope a bunch of 18-year-olds watched that movie and then went and downloaded some Nirvana stuff.
Yeah, that'd be great. That could be the best thing that comes from this movie is a resurgence in like 90s grunge rock. Who knows? Maybe that could be this movie's lasting legacy.
Yeah, maybe. The whole movie was kind of 90s grunge rock.
Very
right.
So it's a good song choice for that reason, because like there's so much like 90s crime thriller like in this movie. Like if you could like strip the comic book elements out of this movie and you've basically got like Seven or any number of other kind of similar like 90s like homages to like film noir or serial killer movies. Like there's a whole spate of those.
Yes, and this had a very noir serial killer movie vibe to it.
Absolutely,
of course. But hey, Batman classically is detective doing detective shit in the comics, and this had a lot of that there, which was great. I could have used more Andy Serkis though. I liked him a lot. As Alfred.
Yeah, it's a good Alfred.
So any other thoughts that you want to get out on the Batman?
Oh man, I have a lot of thoughts on Batman. Like I feel like that's another podcast. Like should we do do the Batman pod and get everyone on that?
It is. I had a lot of thoughts on it as well, and maybe we can come back to this. I will say I really liked how I liked the depiction of Gotham City in this.
Very gritty, very like grounded. I thought, I thought Gotham was very cool in this. Also, the Batmobile was awesome. I like that. I like the Batmobile as a muscle car. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, it made sense. And I will say there's parts of like interior set pieces that reminded me of like Burton era Gotham, with kind of like weird structures and there's like where mob boss guy is, and it's where the windows has this kind of like circular industrial thing, and it reminded me of the where Jack Palance sits in the Batman in the original Batman movie with that circular window behind him. To me, there was a lot of like subtle callbacks there that I really appreciated seeing after Nolan's like hyper real it's a city that you can see existing. Like it literally felt like a mashup of New York, Chicago, Philadelphia, whatever. Because that's what it was. So,
the other thing I like is that there's almost no Bruce Wayne in this movie. It's really a Batman movie. Yeah. Like it's probably like 80-20, like Batman to Bruce Wayne, which I think is good and probably suits Pattinson like pretty well.
Yeah. Well, he said it in the beginning.
Bruce Wayne's a tough.
He's like addicted. He's like addicted to being the Batman.
Yeah. I think that's definitely that's an element of it for sure. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll get deeper into that maybe in a different one. It's good though. You should definitely go see it. I went and saw it at the Nighthawk there. Except my seat was right up next to the screen and off to the side. So the whole movie I'm kind of like this. So I need to watch it again. Yeah, I feel like I missed a lot of details.
Need a neck brace afterwards.
yeah. 2 people came in, sat next to the only 2 seats next to me, and they were like, "We can't do it," and they got up and left before the movie started. But they serve beer in the theater. So.
Oh yeah, I've yet to go to the Nighthawk, but I've heard it's really amazing. Yeah, I know
it's awesome. All right, that is our podcast. I guess we kind of left it out hanging there with those Omegas, but we've got more of that stuff on the site. Go check it out if you want to. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Overall, though, good stuff. I like the unusual, weird stuff from Omega, and Zach's article about the anything but basic watches I think is great, so go check that out if you haven't read it yet. Thank you for tuning in this time, and we will see you later. And don't forget to register for a Loop This account so you can go bid on some auction, some watches for a good cause later this month. We'll have a reminder probably next week in the podcast as well. Thank you for listening, and until next time, take care.